Hey guys, it's Anna from Bright Lane Gardens, and I just wanted to do a quick tutorial to show you how I manually pollinate my pepper plants by hand. I am demonstrating on a hydroponic pepper plant today, but this method will actually work for any indoor pepper plant, whether it's grown hydroponically or in soil, and any variety of pepper plant across the board you can use this method on. When plants are grown outside, we rely on either the wind or insects to go ahead and pollinate our plants, even when they are self-pollinating. However, in an indoor environment, we obviously lack those features, so we have to recreate those features by hand. Now, I do have a small fan that runs on my indoor hydroponic grow setup 24/7. However, the wind only goes one direction and it doesn't hit the plant consistently enough to produce a sustainable pollination effect. So I do go in and hand pollinate my plants every week. Today, I'm going to show you a couple methods for pollinating your plants. You can choose whatever method works for you. We've got an easy method first, and then I'll show you the way that I actually hand pollinate each individual flower, which just produces more consistent results for my own plants. So first and foremost, in order to start a hand pollination process, obviously your plants need to already have flowers on them. This is a process that can be done throughout the entire flowering stage of your plant, and you'll want to start as soon as you start seeing those white flowers appear on your pepper plants. I do have 2 pepper plants planted in this single hydroponic top. The reason I'm doing this is because I plant them in pretty large buckets and they can sustain growing 2 plants at a time. But I also do this because I like that cross-pollination effect between 2 plants. Even though jalapeno peppers, which is what these are a self-pollinating pepper, which means it only requires 1 plant to reproduce. Typically, we see much higher yields when we do cross-pollinate those with another plant. So if you're planting pepper seeds indoors, whether that's hydroponic or in soil, go ahead and toss an extra one in there. You'll likely see an increase in your pepper production overall if you have a second plant to cross-pollinate with. The first method I'm going to show you is super simple. You can do this daily. It certainly doesn't harm the plant at all, and it basically just mimics the effects of wind. Essentially, all you're going to do is take the top of the plant, shake it vigorously, and the goal is that you want the pollen to fall out of those flowers and onto the stigma of another flower. This is certainly the easiest method to use if you're growing a large number of pepper plants at the same time. These are my only 2 pepper plants that I have going at this time, so I really like to get exact with my pollination to ensure that I have maximum yield on these 2 plants since I don't have any other backup plants to rely on. And to do that, I'm going to use a tool, either a Q-tip or a small paintbrush. So I have my Q-tip here. You can use a small paintbrush or anything similar. Just make sure that it's something clean before you touch it to your flowers. As you can see, I have multiple blooms ready to go here on my pepper plant. I'm just going to slowly circle the inside of that flower. You really don't need to apply any pressure at all. This pollen is going to fluff right off onto your Q-tip, and then you'll go ahead and transfer that to a neighboring flower. Keep repeating this process until you've hit all of your flowers on your plant. The basic process of pollination is the stamen, which is the male part of the flower, will produce the pollen. So you're trying to remove the pollen from the stamen, and you're going to go ahead and apply it to the pistil, which is the female part of the flower. And that in turn will fertilize the flower and enable it to produce fruit. If you look really closely, it's a little difficult to see, but you can see a little bit of white residue right here on this leaf. And that is actually the pollen that has fallen from this flower above it when I shook the plant at the very beginning of this video. So the pollen is just a really fine powder that's typically white in color, and you'll likely see that on neighboring leaves. That is the substance that we are trying to transfer from one flower to the next. Once you've hit all of your flowers with the Q-tip, then your pollination process is done for the day. If you're curious how often I do this, the Q-tip method I really only do once or twice a week as I have time, but that shaking method is just so easy that I come down and do that pretty much daily. If you miss a day, it's typically not going to be a big deal. As these new flowers form, they'll produce more pollen and they will go ahead and help pollinate some of those existing flowers as well. If you are noticing flower drop on your plants, which basically means your plant looks pretty healthy, but is for some reason dropping those flower buds, then that is typically a sign of lack of pollination, especially in an indoor plant. So if you look at your pepper plant and you're like, the leaves look great, it's growing the rate that I expect it to, but for some reason it keeps dropping its flowers, 9 times out of 10, that's a pollination issue. So definitely get into that process daily if you do notice any flower drop happening on your pepper plants. Now, like I mentioned, this is actually a hydroponic pepper plant here. I grow a lot of my indoor veggies hydroponically during the winter months just because it's a little bit more of an effective method for me here. As you can see, we have a full-blown blizzard outside right now here in northern Michigan, actually across the Midwest. It is hugely rewarding to be able to grow indoor plants in a warm grow room while I watch a blizzard happening outside. If you are interested in learning more about hydroponic gardening or indoor plants in general, I'll link out to my other playlist on growing indoor vegetables so you can learn a little bit more about the processes that I use here. If you have any questions on my pollination method, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in with us today, and I sure hope to catch you next time. Have a great day.